They picked her out of the line like she was just another blip in the system. Another pair of tired eyes under harsh fluorescent lights. An old woman, not flashy, not frail, just unremarkable. You ever have that feeling like the universe suddenly singles you out for no reason and you can't tell if it's your lucky day or the start of something that'll stick with you? Yeah, that's how it started for Isolde. 68 silver hair pulled into the kind of bun you only get after years of never letting yourself come undone. Clothes pressed sharp as her backbone waiting her turn in a government building where the lines crawl like molasses and the rain outside won't let up. Nobody in that snaking queue paid her any mind. Well, nobody except the security officer with the buzz cut and a uniform, just a shade too tight, who looked at people like they were all puzzles with a missing piece. He called her forward with that "I'm the law and I've got something to prove" gesture, not even bothering with a smile. "ID," he barked, and Isolde handed it over, her hands steady, but her eyes, well, her eyes had a look you only see in people who've walked through fires nobody else remembers. The lamination on her card was yellowed, edges curling, but she had a letter, a real one, government seal, and all that said it'd pass. Didn't matter. Officer Rustin, name tag and attitude to match, barely glanced at it. "Purpose of your visit?" His voice rose just enough to make the folks behind Isolde get curious. Isolde's answer was simple. "I have an appointment." He pressed an appointment for what? She met his eyes and said, "It's personal," and I swear you could feel the suspicion ratchet up in the room. Folks in line, some twitching, some tapping at their phones, got waved through without a second look. But not Isolde. Rustin flagged over his partner, Officer Lorette's stocky guy with salt and pepper hair, and told her to step aside. She didn't fuss, didn't protest, just straightened a little more, and when Lorette's addressed her, she replied, "Yes, sir, the way soldiers do." And both men raised their eyebrows at that. Rustin pointed at her old duffel separate from her tiny rolling suitcase. "Open it!" Isolde's voice was low but steady. "May I request a private screening?" Rustin and Lorette shot each other that looked like. "What's she hiding?" and said, "No, open it right here." Rain dripped from Isolde's coat as she placed the bag on the metal table, unzipped it part way, but asked again. "I'd prefer privacy." Rustin's reply was colder this time. "Comply here, or we take you to a room where the questions get a whole lot deeper. Your choice." And right then I saw it, the kind of look people get when they're weighing 1,000 memories in the blink of an eye. So she stepped back. Rustin snapped on those gloves with more drama than needed, drawing the crowd in closer. Phones came out. Everyone wanted a piece of this, whatever this was turning into. Isolde's face stayed calm, but you could see the resignation, the kind that only comes from having nothing left to hide and nothing left to lose. They pulled her things out one by one, pills, an old photograph wrapped, thank God, a battered copy of Tennyson's poems. They weren't gentle, and the crowd got uncomfortable. Someone whispered, "This feels wrong," but nobody stepped up, not yet. Then Rustin found a small, ornate key. "What's this?" he asked, all snark. Isolde's voice went distant, almost sad. "It opened something that should have stayed closed." The officers laughed. Rustin held up a notebook. "Dressenvale Operation, 1976. Lorette's tried to pronounce mangling it bad enough to make a few people snicker. "Your bridge club," he teased. But Isolde stared straight ahead, unbothered. It went on private things dragged into the light, a letter, medical papers, things that had no business on display. Rustin dug out a small box, found a metal pin, military style but unmarked. "Memento," he mocked. "Of what?" "People who are gone," Isolde replied, and you could see for the first time her hands shake just a bit when he let the pin clatter on the table. She whispered, "Careful with that, please." Rustin just smirked. "Is it valuable?" "Not in money," she answered, and that landed harder than he expected. The real tension came when he reached for the last compartment of her duffel, making a show of it. By now, 20 people were watching. A woman finally spoke up. Is this really necessary? You've already checked everything? Rustin barked at her to step back. Isolde gave the woman a tiny nod like, thanks for trying, but her face had that look of someone who'd already made peace with whatever was about to happen. And just as Rustin went for the zipper, a tall, older man in a military suit entered, flanked by two younger officers like some ghost out of history. Isolde saw him but didn't let on. Rustin, still playing to the audience, said, "Last chance." "Anything you want to tell us? I'm not hiding anything." "I just value my privacy," she said, not a tremor in her voice. He opened the compartment, pulled out a thick, deep blue military jacket decorated with medals and insignia, some of which even he didn't recognize. He tried to make a joke, playing dress-up, but his voice faltered, as Loretz, now curious, took a closer look. "These markings, I've never seen some of these before," Loretz muttered. Someone in the crowd said, "Those medals look real." Rustin insisted, probably surplus store junk, but his confidence was gone. Loretz found a name patch, Thorne, he read. Isolde M. Thorne. He checked the ID, compared numbers, and paled a bit. "They match," he said. An older man in the crowd stepped forward. "That patch, I've only seen it in classified operation photos from the 70s. Rustin told him to step back, but the crowd had turned. Mockery had curdled into doubt. "Rustin pushed women weren't in combat then," he said. "Officially," Isolde replied. And I swear every old veteran in the room raised an eyebrow at that. Loretz, now scrolling through a tablet, said, "There's nothing in the public record." Isolde answered, "You wouldn't find me there." One of the medals slipped, and before anyone else could move, Isolde picked it up herself. "This was after Dressenvale," she said softly. "3 of us got it. I'm the only one left." People in the crowd searched their phones. Nothing came up, just a cryptic footnote about some Cold War operation. The tall military officer, General Crane, was now standing at the checkpoint, his eyes on Isolde's jacket. He walked right over, looked at the uniform, and then at Isolde before saluting her with military precision. "Captain Thorne," he said. "It's been many years." Isolde returned the salute. The crowd went silent, some in awe, some realizing they'd been watching something much bigger than a security checkpoint drama. Rustin and Loretz looked like they'd swallowed a lemon whole. "You know her, sir?" "Know her," Crane said. "Captain Isolde Thorne was one of the finest officers I ever served with. Her file was declassified last month. That's why we're here." He addressed the whole room. "Now Captain Thorne is here to receive the Distinguished Service Cross awarded for heroism that could not be recognized until now." Phones were still out, but now they weren't just filming for gossip. They were recording history. Crane turned to the officers. "Protocol includes dignity, officer. Something worth remembering." Rustin stammered an apology, handing back the jacket with clumsy reverence. "Respect isn't earned by insignia," Isolde told him. "It's earned by recognizing humanity in others." The crowd nodded quiet. One young woman typed furiously on her phone, probably live tweeting every second. General Crane explained for everyone's benefit, Captain Thorne had served in Special Operations Group Delta, a mixed-gender unit behind enemy lines, doing things that officially never happened, missions that turned the tide of the Cold War. Isolde stood there, not basking in the moment, just quietly collecting her things. As they moved on to the ceremony, held in a grand hall above sunlight breaking through rain-washed windows, you could feel the whole building buzzing with the knowledge that for once the system had seen the person behind the paperwork. The ceremony was all formality and precision. Each surviving member of Delta called up medals pinned by the president himself. When Isolde's name was called, she walked up tall in that uniform that had almost been confiscated minutes earlier, and the president told the room how her actions during Operation Dressenvale had saved 37 hostages and kept a fragile peace. Isolde accepted the medal with a salute, her face unreadable, except to those who'd walked beside her in silence for decades. At the reception, everyone wanted a piece of her story, but she stood apart watching. Officer Adira Ellis, the young security officer who'd said nothing during the search, approached nervous, wanting to apologize. "You weren't responsible," Isolde told her, but Ellis admitted, "I watched and said nothing." She asked, "How did you deal with disrespect, especially back then?" "As a woman," Isolde said, "with dignity. Not because I always felt dignified, but because maintaining dignity deprives others of the power to diminish you." She told Ellis, "Your job is to know what's invisible, your own worth." It was the most honest answer in the room. As the crowd thinned, General Crane asked if she'd ever tell the full story of Dressenvale, now that it was declassified. Isolde looked around at the hungry eyes and hopeful faces and shook her head. "Some things belong to those who live them. Recognition is one thing, exhibition is another." She gathered her belongings and made her way out. Outside, the rain had stopped, the city washed clean. Ellis was waiting no longer in uniform, but just herself. "Can I walk with you? I have questions about service, about meaning." Isolde nodded, and together they walked into the afternoon, the old soldier and the young guard, sharing truths about respect and courage. The kind of things that don't make it into medals or citations, but stick with you long after the uniform's been put away. You know what I mean? That's the thing about people. You never know what's behind the lines on their face or the stories packed away in their old duffel bags. Maybe next time you see someone at a checkpoint or a bureaucratic line, you'll look a little closer. So tell me, what do you think? Does dignity come from rank or from how we treat each other right there in the thick of it? Drop a comment. Let's talk about what justice and respect really mean in a world that's still learning how to see people for who they are.